Welcome to the Lacrosse Journal's Chasing the Gold podcast, your destination for all things lacrosse. I almost said destination wrong. I'm your host, Kyle Devitt. Owen is not here, but we have an incredible replacement. Not permanent, but he's here. He's Mr. Connecticut. He's Mr. PLL. He's Mr. Steal Your Girl. It's Dan Arestia. What's going on, man? How we doing?
I'm doing good. I don't know if I missed any of those things, but yeah, I appreciate the intro. Very nice of you to have me back.
Yeah, you know, it's we're talking Connecticut, and as
It's the greatest
is
state
my
in America.
well, yeah. What is the designation of Connecticut? The Constitution State?
We are the Constitution state, and if you like, the Nutmeg state.
I don't like. I like Constitution.
Yeah,
The
Constitution state is better.
Nutmeg's tough. We're gonna talk Connecticut, and we're gonna preview kind of some of the top teams across the board. The thing that confuses me about Connecticut is you have all these classes instead of divisions, which New Hampshire used to have. When I was in school, everything was classes and no one knew what it meant, and it was all population based. Is that the case for Connecticut? How does the designation work?
So it's the reverse here, apparently, because when I was in high school many years ago, we had divisions. We had Division I, Division II, and then it became classes because all the other sports were done by class. And the class you are in is done by size, based on the sex of the sport we're talking about. For boys, it's boys enrollment, girls enrollment in your school, and then the CIAC just kind of sets a level where it's like if you're above this level, you're in L, M, S, and so forth. And then you break it up depending on how many schools play the sport, how many schools you're talking about. So football's got like double L all the way down through, I think, double S. Lacrosse used to just be L, M, and S, and now has double L, L, M, and S. So, yeah, there was a weird couple of years in there too, where like New Canaan was like right on the border between M and L, and all of like the traditional FCIAC powers were L, and then New Canaan was like 20 boys away from being in L, and they wanted to play up because they would go win the Class M state title, but they would be like, we didn't have to play Darien, Wilton, Prep, whoever, anybody to go do it. We just kind of romped through teams. So sometimes you get weird situations like that, but now it's basically sorted itself out. We have our classes.
Well, I didn't really arrange these teams by class. I kind of arranged them. A couple of them I did, but it's kind of the teams that I think people want to hear about, that have the most players, that, have a lot of connection, I think, to people that outside the state. And, feel free to throw in one when we forget, inevitably, the 2, 3, 4, 5 teams that everyone's going to get upset about. We just did the MIAA D2, D1 preview, and I forgot to put in the runner-up for D1's championship game.
You're going to get hammered.
So I'm gonna, I'm stealing myself for the angry emails from that. But just know that I remember that I didn't remember. And I apologize. Let's start at, I think, probably the most logical place. Tell me if I'm wrong. Fairfield Prep.
Yeah, Fairfield Prep won the state title a year ago in Double L. In the preseason poll here that CT Insider and Game Time CT runs, in which I am a voter, Fairfield Prep is the preseason #1 team in the state. Some of it because they're the defending champ, and some people just tend to do it that way. But it's not like they don't have the horses to be there. With Prep, I think I start by looking at who did we lose to graduation, and with Prep, it's significant. Tim Shanahan is currently torching people at BU. He's BU's best offensive player and their top scorer. So you lose him. He was a player of the year caliber player in Connecticut a season ago. Honestly, I think some people voted for him for player of the year. But he's gone. George Hawley, who is PGing right now, but is a Dartmouth commit. He was their top defenseman who, beyond just being a great athlete, he was the guy who would take like the Brady Picorni matchup and win it, or the Gavin Creo matchup and win it. And he's been that guy for them for years. So he's gone. Gavin McCarthy is currently playing LSM for Bryant and like getting minutes. So you lose Gavin McCarthy, and then you lose Ryan Backus facing off, second team All-State guy facing off. So like you start there, you're just like, my God, how can this team still be #1? But 2/3 of their attack is back. The other Shanahan, Luke, a Michigan commit, is back. Nate Estrella, who's a great, like kind of deceptive, great in the 2-man game player going to Air Force is back. They have a midfielder who is like an all name team guy. You ready for this? Finbar Malloy. Fin.
I thought it was just Finn. And then I saw it. I was like,
Oh, it's short
Finbar?
for something. Yeah, Finbar Malloy. Finn Malloy is PGing this year, but he's going to Rutgers. He is a great dodger from the midfield. Love him from like kind of high wings, like sort of shaking guys. He's great at drawing slides and then settling a defense. Cole Garrett's probably going to get the face-off job for them. He's a VMI commit. So like you kind of look at the pieces they still have, and they're just like, actually, this team's still pretty awesome. And their schedule is still incredible. Because they're outside of the FCIAC, they can kind of schedule whoever they want. So they're outside of Connecticut games are like Don Bosco. They're playing St. Ignatius, California, which is rad. But Seton Hall Prep, and then every year they always have the tandem of Chaminade and Del Barton on the schedule. So like it's tough to put all those teams on the schedule. Plus they'll play, the Darien, Canaan, Cheshire, their usual slate of in-state teams. So I still think they're a really great team. Coach Niemi does a great job with that team. It's wild to think that given the guys that they lost, that they'll still be there. But I absolutely still think like they're the team to beat in Connecticut right now.
All right, let's move on to another team that lost a generational player, Matt Jeffrey, Cheshire. Let's talk a little bit about Cheshire.
Yeah, Cheshire, the Rams. You kind of hit the big one there. Like any program, I don't care if you're like, a Baltimore private or one of these Pennsylvania schools, whatever. If you lose the number one kid in the country, you're going to feel it the next year. Like nobody just reloads from losing a player of Matt Jeffrey's caliber. There's some other important players they're going to miss too. They graduated Ryan Grove, their face-off guy who's at Sacred Heart. They graduated, I think, one of the more underrated defenders in the state last year, Lucas Chimbor, who's at LIU now. Was a wonderful defender for them. And they lose Adam Vernon, who's at Salisbury. And Vernon was like a kind of can go between midfield and attack and win a matchup for you kind of guy. So I think the fun thing to look at for Cheshire is Sean Gravelding is going to become the number one guy. He's been kind of the Robin to the Matt Jeffrey Batman for a couple of years. And Gravelding's not a bad player. He's a UVM commit. He's a really, really good, sort of slick, really good shooting attackman. But how guys handle going from being number two to number one is always sort of an interesting dynamic to handle. They have somebody to steady them, and Joey Grenier is still there in net. Joey's a really good goalie. And then Brady Petrala is a midfielder who I think's been kind of maybe waiting for his turn in the sun. He's been like a role player. He's a good dodger, and I really like him as a smart player. Like he can win off the dodge, but he's also always going to find the spot in your defense that you're not paying attention to, and just kind of set up shop there and be like, I'm open and can finish. Very smart player. He's a Drexel commit. So I think they'll be okay, but with them, it's like, the thing I'm going to look at first is if we get to an overtime game, who gets the ball? Like we had the answer to that question for a long time. I don't know if we have it going into the season right now.
Yeah. Gravelding had like 80 points last year, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's probably a good bet he's going to get. Not all points come just because the guy above you is doubled or all that stuff. So I think, this is definitely a team to watch. Obviously, Cheshire, for me, Cheshire's like the school that all the Rabas went to, as someone that's like outside of the region. It's got a great history, and if they didn't have a good program, I don't think the Rabas would have all gone through there, because coach wouldn't have let that happen. And as it is, they still have Jack, who's in, what year is this for Jack Reba?
He's in 19th grade.
It's so crazy. It's so awesome. So happy for him at Wesleyan. Any other parting thoughts before we move on to the next one?
Yeah, I would, again, like you said there, like Coach Devine does an awesome job. That's a program now that's in a town where you can feel safe about it from a year-to-year basis at the high school level, because the youth program there is so healthy and there's so many kids playing lacrosse that just unlike the sheer numbers game, like they're going to find guys that they're going to be okay.
Let's talk about Darien. Close to your heart. What is the deal with this team? Because this is a team where I remember watching them at NALS, and they had a lot of like sophomore, juniorish guys that are, I think that's kind of going to be their strength this year. Is that off kilter at all?
No, that's correct. That's correct. I think again, I always start looking at the guys who are gone. You lose 2 starting attackmen. One of them's Brady Picorni, who's at Notre Dame now and started for 4 years. There are not a whole lot of guys who start for 4 years at Darien High School. In the last 20 years, you can probably count them on one hand. And they lose Porter Barnett, who's at Richmond. That's the other starting attackman that they lose. So you lose those guys. You lose an All-American goalie to graduation. You lose a D3 King, Will Bonner, who went to Tufts, who was like, turn on the St. Anthony's tape from last year, and I'll tell you he's going to Tufts. And you'd be like, what do you mean? He's not going to Maryland? Like he's going to Tufts? It's like, no, he's going to Tufts. He's that good, but he's going to Tufts. And then they lose Briggs McGuckin, who's at Loyola. But Bonner and McGuckin both are, Bonner is an LSM. McGuckin is like a two-way midfielder, like just dominated the middle of the field for that team last year. So you lose those guys. I think Darien's always going to have a good goalie. They've had a good goalie for the last, 3 decades. Like they just always have a really good goalie. They have George Persinger now, who's going to be a senior this year, who's a St. Lawrence commit. You return Mark McNamara on the close defense, but kind of to your point there, this is the year I think where they have this loaded 2026 class, kids who lost sophomores last year. And this is the year I think it becomes their team, right? Like Ryan Thurlow and Max McBride. I think those two guys who have Ben Bilodeau, like it's a super athletic group, and really like McBride in particular is just an electric Dodger. So I don't know if he's going to be an attack or midfield this year, but he could play both. I think those are the guys you kind of watch. I think Jake Mariska, who I believe is a Loyola commit now, but kind of like came to facing off like at the start of high school.
Yeah.
So like he's very late to it. He's an awesome hockey player. So he has, like that weird thing where you get the guys with ridiculous hands who just kind of cross over into lacrosse. But he developed very quickly facing off last year. From the beginning of the season, you were like, this guy's a beginner, to the end of the year where it's like, he's not like an All-American, but he does not look lost out there. And so him continuing to develop, I think, gives them a face-off option that they don't usually have. And then they have a defenseman, Charlie Tom, who I don't think he's committed anywhere. He might have committed and I missed it, but Charlie is 6'5". He's about 235. He plays tight end on the football team. The football team ran a 2 tight end set with Charlie and a kid who's like 6'7" and going to play tight end at Georgia Tech. It was like, I don't know how anybody handled them. But he is a guy who came to lacrosse a little bit late too, and has like incredible athleticism for a guy his size, and can be just like if the ball hits the ground and he's nearby, like it's becoming a football game at that point, and it's gonna be his ball. So that's a guy I think who could be fun to watch for them this year. But I think that the 2026 class, this is the year I think where it becomes kind of their show, particularly on the offensive end.
Yeah, I think you already talked about him a little bit, but I remember when Max McBride committed, he's going to Lafayette, and I texted you. I was like, why is he going to Lafayette? What's happening? Like, is this a family thing? Like, what's happening? Because I saw he and Bilodeau really stood out at NELS this past summer, where Bilodeau would just torch a guy, and McBride all of a sudden is open, and he's shooting. And it's already in the back of it. He took a shot that should not have gone in. He had no angle. He caught it near the sideline, maybe took 2 steps, ripped it, goal.
Yeah, he is. McBride's quickness is certainly D1 level. He's one of those guys where it's like there's a shorty out there and he gets a little run up. He's going to do that like Michael Sowers, like shoulder shake and be gone. And it just happens that way.
Yeah, let's wait for my face to fix on the Zoom, because this is an embarrassing place we're at right now. But we'll just keep going. We'll just keep rolling. There it is.
Okay.
Let's go. Oh, here's a team that I'm curious about because they have a new head coach, Ridgefield.
Yeah, as you said, Ridgefield, new head coach, that kind of thing changing is always going to be crazy. Roy Colsey has been the coach there for a long, long time. So he retired from the coaching thing. His son Kyle was the Connecticut Player of the Year last year and graduated. Kyle's at UVA now. He's missing this year with injury, unfortunately, but he was, like a slot wide receiver in football and a attackman in lacrosse. And his separation and shooting ability is kind of what made him kind of special. And like the same way you would watch him like get off the line in the red zone as like a slot wideout for the football team, you see the same kind of like footwork and just I only need a yard of space to get by you as an attackman. So you lose him, and then you lose Michael Dowd to Brown, who was a really good defenseman, like an all-state, all-American, even level kind of defenseman for them. He's at Brown now, but that's another piece where it's like on both ends of the field there, you kind of lose the guy who's the obvious, like, I need a play on this end of the field. I'm going to this guy. Both those guys are gone. They have Jay Carney back, a Sacred Heart commit, who's a really productive attackman, kind of playing off Kyle and some of the other weapons they had last year. So I think he gets to kind of take the reins a little bit. They have a D2 king, Des Corey, going to Bentley, who is a super athletic midfielder, was all state for them. So I think there's pieces there where they'll be okay. There's another Colsey there, and Christopher, who was a freshman last year and played for them.
How many Colseys are there? How is it possible?
Chris is the youngest. He got to play for his dad for 1 year. I think Roy was getting ready to hang it up kind of near the end. And I think it was like, look, I'll try and stick around for the beginning for you, but I think he was we kind of go there at the end. But there's like, it's a team with a lot of nice pieces, and the Pens, Brandon and Dylan, both Hobart commits, should be there. So there's a lot of guys where it's like, you're sure they're going to be okay, but whenever there's a coaching change from somebody who's been as entrenched there as Colsey was, and won as much as Colsey did, and kind of elevated that program, it's a big change to undergo, along with like the leadership losses at both ends.
Let's talk about a team that has had a lot of success in the last 3, 4, 5 years. Staples. Where do we see them this year?
So the Wreckers, again, another team where it's like, I think you lose a couple of key pieces, and lose like Ben Burmeister as in the midfield. I know he kind of ended up missing a lot of last year anyway with injury, but look, they're awesome in goal with Josh Marcus. I think we all kind of know that that's the case. Adam Udell, a Michigan commit, who was their best player on offense last year, is a senior this year. I think you want to watch him as somebody who's like going to draw the top pole, but still be relied on to kind of win that matchup. A fun guy to watch for them is Nate Murillo. He started for them as a freshman. Kind of a close defense, sometimes at LSM, kind of on wings, but just like a pole who basically was like, look, he's a freshman, but we have to find a way to get this kid on the field because he's so good. He's probably going to go down low for them this year as a sophomore, but he is a player who I think they're going to, even though he's as young as he is, probably get leaned on to win some matchups, to be a defensive impact guy. I think him, and then Justin Halke had a bit of a star turn for them from the midfield last year, hit some big goals, hit like an OT game winner for them. He's a very dynamic Dodger in the midfield. So I think those are the kind of the names there that I'm most intrigued to watch. Face off, we'll kind of see where they are. Cisco Salata was great for them last year. He's facing off for Gettysburg now. So, it's a spot where they had kind of a two-headed monster a year ago. So maybe kind of some new faces there this year to see if they can keep tilting the field.
So I say, go top shelf, upper 90s, right under the crossbar. Any questions?
Professor, the NCAA Lacrosse Championships are coming to Boston. Are we ready?
You prepared to get loud, face paint up, bring boom boom to Beantown? Oh, you're ready. The NCAA D1, D2, and D3 men's and D1 women's lacrosse championships, May 23rd through the 26th in Boston. Buy your seats today at ncaa.com/tickets.
Hi, I'm Jamie Marcoux, AVP for Athletics at LaSalle University. We're proud to offer 15 NCAA Division III varsity sports teams. And last year, all of our varsity teams advanced to the conference playoffs. Our student athletes excel both on the field and in the classroom. LaSalle offers over 60 majors and minors and is located just 8 miles from Boston. With one of the most affordable private educations and housing ranked #1 in Massachusetts by Niche, we're committed to providing an exceptional college experience. Visit lasalle.edu to learn more.
All right. The team that I think probably produces the most prep players outside of Greenwich, New Canaan. Just a guess.
I don't know. Yeah, I was going to say it's definitely Greenwich. New Canaan might not be too far behind. The Rams, my alma mater, defense is still the name of the game for this team. It was the name of the game for them last year. Like, you graduate Dylan Stevens, who goes to Syracuse, and you're still like, actually, we're still loaded at goal. Like, we have probably not even losing a ton. You have Bryce Lyden, Michigan, Chase Harden, High Point, Braden Roby, BU, Will Hayes, Denver, Cam Lyden's back in goal, Michigan. Like, I don't know how anybody's going to score goals on this team. And the thing with their poll group is, you need to be ready the second you step on the field against them. They're going to pick you up the second you touch a blade of grass outside of the sub box, and they're going to be in your hands, and they're going to be checking the hell out of you, and they're going to want to turn the ball over. They play like Leiden in particular is a machine like that. He wants to be in your gloves and destroying you all the time. So with like a hyper aggressive pull group like they have, and then they have JT O'Neill facing off, and he's going to Army and was an all-state guy a year ago, and like, you know, it's you might not see the ball for a whole lot of time when you play against the Rams, and when you do have it, like your possessions, you're going to have to earn every blade of grass that you touch against their defense. It's there's a reason some people have them. I think it's the highest ranked public school in from Connecticut in the country right now. Is, you know, they're kind of the most well regarded. It's just because of how good and how mean they can be on defense. They lose Doster Kroll in attack, who was at Michigan now and was like, you know, one of the best shooters in Connecticut, if not the best shooter in Connecticut. So, you know, where they kind of go for offense will be interesting. Cole Campese is a really good young midfielder who was on the field some last year. He's a 2026, but probably needed to hit the weight room just a little bit. He was a little bit light, and you can see kind of bigger defensemen kind of pushing him around a little bit, but he's a Denver commit because of where his ceiling is. And I think if he kind of starts approaching that this year, then you have an answer on offense.
Yeah, I think I don't recall if it was New Canaan playing Wilton, but I watched it live because you were talking about it, and I was like, wait, this score isn't supposed to be right. I think it was New Canaan, and Wilton like almost beat them, and then you were just like, nope, don't worry, it's gonna happen. Let's move to Wilton as a good transition there. How do you see them?
So Wilton had one of my most favorite players to watch in the state last year. They had Connor Flanagan, who was an LSM for Wilton, who's at Utah now. And Flanagan was like, he's one of those like super smooth pulls where it's like he's going to pick the ball up off the ground and it's going to happen in the blink of an eye. And then he's also like, forget like rolling or running to space. He's going to see or pick somebody up out of his eye, like breaking out of the sub box, and just hum a behind the back pass to them from like 20 yards away, just put it on the guy's ear. Like a super smooth and really good handling pull who was like just great off the ground. And those are kind of guys that are hard to replace. He's been like, you know, a leader for them. They have a couple of guys who I think are really, really exciting to watch. One is Charlie Calabrese, who is an Army commit at attack, who will, you know, probably be their top weapon. And the other is Connor McAndrews, a UVM kid. Who, Connor was a kid who, you know, even though he was a 2026, so again, like an underclassman last year, but found himself kind of getting opportunities and getting the ball late in games and like high leverage spots and not at all being afraid of the moment. And I think when you have guys like that, then, you know, your offense is probably going to be okay. So McAndrews is probably going to be a guy, he and Calabrese will be kind of the 1-2 punch, I think, for them as the year goes on. But, you know, if you can handle those two guys, you'll probably do okay. A lot of the talent in Wilton is a little bit younger. They've been kind of a younger team, but those two guys are kind of where you start. And then that 2026 and the 2027, the really young underclassmen is very good.
Let's talk about last year's Class M champs, Daniel Hand.
So Hand, I think, in terms of like a team that might have like the biggest question about how you're going to replace this guy, is they lose Jack Orlando, their starting goalie, to Delaware, who was one of the best goalies in the state. They have some quality offensive pieces returning. PJ O'Hanlon is one of them. He's going to Detroit Mercy to play for the baddest man in lacrosse, Charlie Hayes.
Yeah.
But like, Hand is a team where I wonder about their depth a little bit this year. They had a really, really good attack last year. They had two guys who were like, you know, Sisk was racking up the points and they were kind of just filling up the net last year with the attack. Those guys are gone. So, you know, it's kind of up to O'Hanlon as kind of a dynamic player who he's going to play attack for them. I imagine he can be an attackman or a midfielder in my eyes. He's a good athlete like that, but you know, you lose Orlando, you lose a really good LSM in Connor Boletto, you lose Dylan DeProspero down low. Like the defensive end of the field for them, I think until I see otherwise is going to be a lot of questions.
Yeah. What these last couple teams are, I'm just really not familiar with them. I'm just gonna be honest.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. New Fairfield. How do we feel?
The Rebels. So New Fairfield's a well-coached team. They're always going to be. Marty Morgan is a Hall of Famer. He's been there forever. Like turns out top-tier talent. and sends guys to the top of the college ranks, like with regularity. They're not an FCIAC team, so sometimes they don't get the shine, but look, they are a defending state champion. Not only a defending state champion, they held Somers goalless in the state title game. A 0 in the state.
A 0 in a title game?
In a state, they won the game 9-0. 0. Their defense, their pole group is really good. To me, the most exciting guy in the group is James Fidelio, who's a 2026. I don't think he's committed yet, but him off the ground, he could go LSM for them. He could play down low for them. He is an eraser of a defenseman, very good in transition. So I think, you combine the fact that a lot of their really good defensive group is back, and they have a Merrimack committed faceoff guy. It's kind of like the same formula that you would have with like a New Canaan, where it's like the Poles are super mean. They're going to win a ton of faceoffs. It might just be really hard to score on this team again.
Did you say Merrimack? Like
I did.
Oh my God.
Merrimack. The Mac.
Last team I have on my list. Who is this school named after? Joel Barlow. Who is Joel Barlow? Who is this?
I'd love to answer your question. However, I don't know who Joel Barlow is. That said, the Joel Barlow Falcons, they're a really good program. They always have been. They turned out a lot of good athletes. They had a kid a couple years ago, Daddy Shaban, who was like a freak lacrosse player, but ended up playing football at UConn instead. I think they have a chance to win the state title this year. I think if I was picking it right now, I'm picking them over Hand in that class. I was talking to you before, and they have the fabulous Bonanno boys. There's 4 of them.
Yes.
Cole, the goalie, I think is of them. I think it has the most impact on games. Cole went 66% in goal last year. He is an outstanding goalie. He's committed to Wagner. His brother Luke is also committed to Wagner. 85 points a year ago, 55 of them on goals at attack. Joey Bonanno, 34 goals and 26 assists from the midfield last year, going to Endicott. And then the youngest is Chase, who is a year. Those 3 are triplets. They're all the same year.
Oh, okay.
Well, Chase is a year younger and didn't see as much time last year. He was an underclassman. This year, it sounds like he's going to be in the lineup a lot more, but another just hyper athletic midfielder. So I think the Bonanno boys alone kind of are as good as any kind of group of players that you're going to find in that class. And then they have a very good defenseman of Andrew Watson. I went and saw him play Weston a year ago, and he was just terrorizing people. He is a cause turnover machine. He had 54 cause turnovers last season. He scored 7 points. He's going to Pace to play for the great Tom Mariano. So Andrew Watson is a defenseman who should be like an all-state level guy in coverage in particular. He's a beast.
Let's go. Mariano's our guy.
I know. They had a midfielder, Ian Lent, who was like a midfielder, the kind of guy you put in the invert and just wait for the goal to happen. He was just automatic from wings, especially on like GLE. Losing him from an athleticism standpoint, because he was like a 2-way guy, is tough. But I really like the team that they have back. I think they're really, really good.
For the record, Joel Barlow was an American poet, diplomat, and politician. He supported the French Revolution, was an ardent Jeffersonian Republican, and he engaged in the Battle of Long Island, and also was in the 4th Massachusetts Brigade of the Revolutionary War. So,
yeah,
he's no General John Stark. I'll tell you that.
If you were making
pretty
that
important.
He's no Roger Sherman either, frankly. Roger Sherman's a founding father from Connecticut, but
yes, John Stark is where I went to high school. That's why that joke is only funny to me. Any other teams that I'm missing on this list so far that could be real contenders? Notre Dame, West Haven, teams like that. Anyone, we talked briefly about Simsbury just because I know the coach and I know that they have a player that scored like 80 goals.
Yeah. Simsbury has Gavin Bolger, who is a freak, who is, I think if you start looking at recruiting rankings for his class, he's going to be like a top 100 in the country kind of guy. He, it's like if you go read his recruiting bio, you could tell he's being nice about it, but like he's very diplomatically being like, I played attack last year, but I also like to play D-midi. It's like, oh, you're the kid who never comes off the field.
Yes.
Because he can cover attackmen because he's so athletic. And then as a Dodger, he's insane. And yeah, he had 80 goals a year ago. He had a 10-goal game at least once, I think. Like 80 goals. So he is somebody to watch as like he's going to commit to a big time program. And he alone is going to be like, if they show up to play New Canaan tomorrow, New Canaan's going to be like, you can't mess around with this guy. Even with our poll group, you cannot mess around with Bolger. He's that good. So Simsbury, I would say, and then St. Joe's. Brennan Talbot's a great coach, and that program, lost some to graduation, but they returned a lot of really good players. That St. Joe's program has kind of been there before, and it's always in the mix. They're never like a team you can overlook. And I guess the guys that they lost last year are like important, like losing James Corey, who was like one of the best midfielders in the state. He went to RIT, is big, but their goalie, Michael Coletti's back. They have an outstanding lawn stick midfielder, this kid, Jason Pagano, who's going to St. John's, who was like you're okay leaving him on to play some offense kind of guy for them. He's like, I wouldn't be surprised if he's on their man up this year. He's one of those kind of pulls. They have an attack midfielder in Sean Archibald, who's really, really good as a Dodger going downhill. I think he's going to Anderson, I want to say. I think he's a D2 guy, but the Griner boys, Dylan and Forrest, are both great. Like, they have a lot of really, really good players returning on that team. And I kind of just trust Coach Talbot to have them reloaded. So I think St. Joe's will be a team to watch too.
All right. Let's pick an ideal final for, is Class LL the biggest one?
Class LL is the biggest. So if I'm picking, I went through this, I didn't know we were going to do Final Fours and pick title games.
Just title game.
Okay. Just title game. Let me pull up my notes again. Class L or Class LL in the title, I got Buchanan over Prep. I don't think anybody scored enough goals to beat Buchanan this year. So I got the Rams beating the defending champion, Prep Jesuits. Class L, it's weird because it's like I see St. Joe's in there, and I guess that's where they are now. Because I always thought of them as like an S or N. St. Joe's over Cheshire, I think. I think Cheshire can get back, but I do really believe in St. Joe's this year as a team with a good goalie and enough offensive weapons to give people problems, and an LSM who's a game changer. I got Barlow over Hand, and I guess that's Class M. Again, I think Barlow's like their offensive group, and then they're so good in goal, and they have an eraser of a defenseman that's usually enough in that class to at least get you there. And I would trust them to kind of have Watson take away Hand's best guy and win the game for them in the title game. And then Class S, I got New Fairfield over Somers in a title rematch. Somers has a very good goalie. He got obviously saw a lot of rubber in the state title game a year ago. Their offense would need work, but I don't think New Fairfield's losing enough to really consider them anything but a favorite Class S.
All right. Let's do bonus because
bonus.
Again, you are, let's make it cosmopolitan for everybody. You're a PLL expert, insider, right? Sticks In podcast. You have a sticksin.com, correct?
Sticksinlacrosse.com.
Sticksinlacrosse.com. Who's the number one pick in the draft?
CJ Kirst.
Yeah, there's no hesitation, right?
CJ Kirst. I do another podcast. I do too many podcasts. I do one with the wonderful pro player, John Donville, who's very, very smart lacrosse mind. Beyond being a great player, he also understands a ton about lacrosse. But we do a show together that comes out on Thursday. It's called College Lacrosse Show. And we were talking about CJ Kirst and the season that he's having. He's currently shooting over 50%. He was approaching 60% before their Albany game midweek. And we were talking about, number one, how ridiculous it is that there's we're in a world where when he shoots the ball, the most likely outcome is that it's a goal before anything else. Not misses the net, not saved. The most likely thing that happens when he shoots is he scores a goal, which is insane. He also is sitting, I think he's at like 45 goals right now. And I ran the risk of jinxing it, but I was like, 82 is in play for him. There's enough season left that 82 is in play. The record for goals in season is held by Miles Thompson and John Reese. It's 82. The record, the pace with which he is scoring and how well he is shooting and how ridiculous that offense is. The goals record, I think, for his season is in play for him. I think that Darien is going to have his name on it. I think if you take anyone other than him, then you should be fired the next day.
Didn't we have a similar situation to this though, and that happened? Wasn't that the Wisnauskas thought too?
I think that was the Wisnauskas here too. Wisnauskas, but he ended up winning the Tuareg, so you could defend it a little bit. Wisnauskas was taken ahead of Chris Gray, which
Right.
better long-term play, I guess.
In hindsight,
Better
Chris
long-term
Gray,
play.
who recently retired. That's what we're referencing. Where can everyone find all of your stuff, including the stuff that we do?
You can find my written stuff, be it pro indoor, pro outdoor, or college stuff at sticksandlacrosse.com. I do all this Connecticut stuff that you just got. You can get even more of it at New England Lacrosse Journal with you. And so I'll do some of that. I'll touch the college game a little bit there as well, with the focus being on guys from New England, mostly from Connecticut, the best state in America. And then the Sticks and Lacrosse podcast, you can get anywhere you get podcasts. The College Lacrosse Show, you can get anywhere you get podcasts and on YouTube.
And you can get our ranks for Division II and Division III on USA Lacrosse, even though people on the Twitter box don't like us. Because we didn't rank
We do that
Lynchburg
too.
high enough. Oh no. The losing
somebody.
team.
Eat somebody.
Somebody's got to be hated. And I'm glad that you and I are hated together. It's fun. It makes everything a lot more fun. Just want to thank you for coming on, Dan. Check
Thanks
out
for
all
having
his
me.
stuff. And we want to thank you again for listening to the Lacrosse Journal's Chasing the Goal podcast. For Owen Hart, who's not even here, I'm just giving him credit. I'm Kyle Devitt. We'll see you next time.